And anything that's data-driven is therefore technically more focused and more measurable and therefore more responsive. But having said media, I think that shift is, they're dragging their feet over it. And like I said, partially it's cultural, because that was not your core skill when you first got hired into the job. And I think the second aspect is really also the fact that it takes a whole different skill set. A lot of it is really about engagement with new media, understanding it intrinsically, and really talking to consumers whose expectations out of marketing are completely different. So to my mind, we're getting there. I don't think everyone is, but it's it's an imperative, and in time it'll just happen sooner than later.
Okay. So I think since we are between the bar and you, so I'm probably going to run through 5 themes and then generate, I guess, more discussion. And I'll pick on one panelist to pose each question. The next one, I think we've had many a time that conversation that CMOs need to be more outcome focused than activity focused. They are measurements, but are they really for the right purpose? Right? As I say, you must have the right map before you start running faster to know where you are going. So Raj, you are in the measurement business, right? So what is keeping CMOs away from being outcome measurement focused, and what could they do?
So, as you said, Nielsen being the performance measurement company, we do see the evolution in CMOs focus on measurement. As Lloyd said, they are getting into looking at data. So that evolution is happening. I think, from a overall... It's not on? It's not on. Can you hear me? Sorry. Should have asked that first. So basically what I was saying, measurement is critical, but I think how you look at measurement, I could kind of simplify it into 3 probably categories. Measurement has to be unified. So what we see in companies that work with, most of the companies that we work with do measure their activities, do make sure that they invest in measurement, spend enough time looking at that measured information. But what it is missing is each of the stakeholders are looking at it in a different way. So some cases we see some of the stakeholders at the C-suite level measure completely different metrics. So as a result, it's not unified. That unified way is critical for, particularly for C-suite, if they were to kind of take on the new technology and move digital. The second part of measurement is it needs to be holistic. So what we see is, in most cases, measurement is done at a conscious level. Subconsciously, consumers are probably thinking, but not able to articulate their wishes or their needs. And if we don't understand, if CMOs don't understand the actual need, what they're trying to solve for on a day-to-day basis, innovation, where do we take the digital, how do we leverage the digital, is going to be hard. So the third piece that on measurement is about linking the measurement to data, or datafying the measurement, and making sure that that is linked to outcomes. And a lot of cases we do see decisions are made based on looking at the data and how the outcome has been because of their investments. A lot of marketing mix models have been kind of invested for across a lot of marketing companies, but it's in still evolution. Given that media and marketing is so fragmented, particularly in India, we do see it's a huge white space.
People are very focused on what they do, but it's, how do you change that grain? How do you bring that cultural change of market centricity? What's your thoughts?
I think it first probably starts by even redefining the role.
Lloyd has all the power. So.
I think it starts by actually redefining what the role of a good marketer is, or the chief marketing officer in today's context. Part of the reason being that the customer's behavior, expectations, aspirations are changing so much more rapidly now than it has ever been in the past. More importantly, as far as India goes, there are many latent behavioral changes in the making. They are not overt yet, but they are residing somewhere. Can we have a marketing officer who does not just only look at what the current transactions are, what the current competition is doing, but what my customers, whatever the customers are, might be looking for some weeks, months, years down the line, And then they almost become, in a way, if not the chief strategy officers at the same time, but at least start feeding it right back to the board level, if nothing else, that I see this change happening. Now, then thereafter, because the marketing officer cannot be communicating or evangelizing his or her brief would be far exceeded if they were to try to do so. So it's about marketing officer escalating it first to the board, and then the board taking measures suitably to connect there. I don't see that happening, unfortunately, in many companies. We are still seeing roles of a production person, a chief innovation officer some companies have, a chief R&D officer some companies have. They're all still operating in silos. R&D cannot be done in isolation without active intervention of the chief marketing officer. Innovation cannot happen if you don't get those inputs from the marketplace there. So I think one is actually across functionalities, a closer integration, but I still think that the boards have to play now, unfortunately or fortunately, much more proactive role in evangelizing those changes. So that's my take on this.
No, so I think if you look at a lot of the new research that is coming out, so maybe there is some lag between actual, seeing it on the ground. People are really talking about, CMO as their champion for strategy. With also different functions at different horizons. Sales functions sometimes are more driven by the quarter and so on and so forth. And marketers really have in their arsenal the whole market knowledge, customer information, and control over, the point at which business touches the customer. So I think many of the CMOs are potentially taking lead to use that as an opportunity and take a much larger role in scheme of things. So probably we'll see a lot more. And that brings me to the fourth area. I think we are all talking about customer experience, but in a visible way, digital experience is probably becoming sort of the leading edge of the customer experience. At least for marketers, those are the things they probably get asked most about. Those are the things that seems to have most metrics that worry them, and those are the ones which are more instantaneous, so they immediately get a call asking whether it is ROI, whether it is effectiveness of what they are doing, and so on. At the same time, clearly customers are looking for one unified experience between the virtual and the real. Clearly, we are seeing people shuffling back and forth and saying, give me one reality. This is just a means of doing there. So in this environment, Sanjay, do you see CMOs becoming or donning a hat of chief digital officers? Is going to be a different hat? And you have an interesting designation, you marketing, product, and digital, right? So how do you see that? And what's been your experience in HDFC Life?
Well, coming to your last point, I think today's CMO has to be a CDO. If he's not, then company will definitely recruit a CDO. And marketing guy will just be a brand and communication expert. So again, I'll just link back what Lloyd was saying. It is a traditional mindset. Marketeer came from a very strong brand and communication mindset. Their overall knowledge is on creative development process and media handling. So basically they handle two agencies. One is agencies like Leo Burnett, what Arvind was running for a very long period of time, or Mindshare. And that's the core knowledge they have really purchased. What has happened over the period of time, like we have done many discussion, I'll not really delve into it. The consumers have gone completely digital. See, customer is it's like a digital first consumer, because he's getting the first point of information, be it through search, be it through user comment, be it through social media, be it through, with a mobile he's connected, with a mobile he can actually chat, he can actually FaceTime with your customer service. So there are a lot of things he's actually using what we call social mobile analytics, a cloud, all these platforms he's using some bit. And he's now much more confident about taking his calls, at understanding more, looking at your competition. So this is actually a change completely. I think all of us in marketeer can really look at distinct phases 10 years back, 5 years back, when there is some bit of changes happening, what I call as an incremental change. Most of the marketeer has to have a digital department, mostly looking at, communication part of it, which is basically manned by a junior resource. And, he's like a smart kid, so he'll do everything supposed to be digital or digital communication. But time has come now that digital is a part of a mainline department, because digital is no longer part of marketing. Digital is about what customer is thinking about the brand, how he's engaged with the brand, how he's buying the brand, how his overall experience about the brand. So what we see that, there's a digital first is going to the way forward. So what the seed, again, companies are separated by CMOs and CIOs. CMOs basically say that I need know the customer. CIOs or CTOs used to tell that, boss, I know about the systems and this thing. So you don't know anything about systems, so don't tell me. You tell what is required. I will go and negotiate. I'll get that system for you. That's the internal, I think, lot has been written about CTOs and CMOs kind of thing. But interestingly, now this new breed has come in, like, which is a chief digital officer. But the advantage of the chief digital officer is he doesn't need both of them, because he can actually use analytics to understand customer behavior. Because look, just imagine, a e-commerce company, and we believe most of the businesses will be driven by online, or like a major part of the business will be driven by online. In insurance, BCG and Google did a survey. They said 70% of the business will be influenced by online by 2020. So 70% in insurance kind of is a subject matter of solicitation. For hundreds of years it was under with agents at the bank. Just imagine in 7 years' time, 70% will be done by online. So he understands the customer. He actually can really innovate. He can see what is by using analytics, he can do web analytics, he can do UI analytics, he can do behavioral and behavioral targeting. He can do multiple things, and you can do beta testing to understand what customer is basically looking for. I can really serve different communication messages to customer, which most of the e-commerce portals are currently doing. So he has become what we call as a one-on-one marketeer, and he basically understands you better with an Adobe tool or any other tools available, and serve you better. So he's actually talking to you one-on-one. He understands you better. The second thing is he understands your customer expectations. So I don't need a call center to answer to you. I can have a chat window opening up. I can, by knowing what kind of need you have, I can actually have a digital, in our thing, what we call as a application processing manager. So once you complete the entire activity, I can put a DHL kind of thing, your proposal is lying here, you want to know more, you can know more. You want to put a customer complaint, you can come to this bucket and do it. So with digital, I don't need a customer service department. With digital, I don't need a sales department. So eventually, so he is now almost becoming new way of writing the business. It's like a Uber way, what Uber did to the taxi companies, most of the taxi companies. It is what digital can do in our industry. And if you, at the CDO, has got a place in the, can get a place in the board also, because he understands now he understands customer much better, he understands marketing, he understands business, and he can link all these three, like you said, with a much more better performance index, and he can actually sow business, and he can create a new way of creating business in a traditional world, which no one has ever thought about. I think CDO is the way to go, and the marketer has to learn that discipline, and or else have a smart guy under him who can actually do that work.
No, very valid. I think clearly, first port of call for digital has been marketing. Now marketing can either take it on and make it business wide, or miss that opportunity and let somebody else take it, because clearly digital is more about the way business is getting done, not only about marketing. And I think Sanjay is very well qualified to make that remark. We were talking before the session, and he said they were late entrants in the traditional side of the business, but digital, they took the lead, and they are like 4 times the market share of nearest next competitor, right? So, couldn't be a very
interesting point. In old, say every bend gives you an opportunity to overtake the competition. Like I run marathon, so in every time there is an uphill, you got an opportunity to actually beat your very fast runner, because not many people learn how to really run the uphill better. So what it gave us an opportunity in a traditional world, including LIC, you probably have got 4% share. But in a digital world, including LIC, I think, again, company like Aegon, company like us, even company like Aviva, they have really created a huge market share. There is no way LIC is around, because they are trying to protect the traditional piece of the business. They are not really focusing on us, focusing on this segment. So whoever is focused, they've grown much faster. So tomorrow, time might come that suddenly if this side of the business become bigger, you can become a number 1 player or number 2 player in the whole segment.
Absolutely. A number of industries we've seen that. Companies which were large no longer exist, which they are dependent on their old strength. Now I think the last but not the least is, how does CMO make it happen? I think it all starts with this obsessive, desire to serve the customer and be ahead of anybody else, and finally boils down to talent and people. There is science to it, as we heard a lot of, but there is an art to it. I think the art of storytelling is no more important ever it was than it is today. So how does CMO hire the right talent and create these ambassadors for the brand and storytellers who will be the carriers of this philosophy and thought into the future. So Arvind, with your long experience across all facets of marketing and industries, I thought you will be the best person to share thoughts on this.
Yeah, I'm happy to share my confusion instead of my thought. And I'll tell you what it's really a CMO, or for that matter, a marketing job is a really, really challenging job. So you're supposed to be analytically very strong because it's all about research and it's all about driving results, correct? So you have to be analytically strong. There's a significant finance side to marketing. When you are going and spending $50 million, $100 million a year on advertising, those are on marketing of various kinds, it's serious amounts of money that your shareholders are trusting you with, or owners of the company are trusting you with, and you've got to give them, you're accountable for it. Then there is the simple, you're dealing with customers who are human beings, so you must need to understand their needs, you need to understand what they say drives their behavior, and in truth, what actually drives their behavior. And what they say drives their behavior, which is what very often simplistic researchers will tell you, and sophisticated researchers that my colleagues on this panel do will tell you what really drives their behavior. So there's a bit of a, you have to be also Soros, Freud, maybe, I don't know who the greatest data analyst is. And that's not enough, because understanding what drives people and having triggers that actually drive that behavior are two different things. It's the difference between a psychologist and a movie maker. A movie maker has triggers that move you. A psychologist can only tell you this, what drives you. And now on top of that, you have this whole technology piece, which is becoming pretty central. So I have gone, my confusion is, if you got 6 pillars defining, 6 competencies defining what is a good marketing man, you can jump from one pillar to another. If the guy is very good with insights and creative expression, you say, but he doesn't even look at his research. He's wasting companies' money. Correct? If he's very good at analytics, on the analytics side, but he is throttling the creative process, you say, who hired him? So it is a really, really complex task to find right marketing people. Some CMOs do an incredibly good job. Some of them, like all of us, use standard boxes. So I will hire him as my marketing manager because he comes from a good background, company ABC. And you know how company ABC hires. Company ABC goes to IMA and picks up, or IMC or IMB and picks up top 5% of the students, and all of them are hardcore engineers who have not a grain of human understanding in them. They have all the logic. So it is hard, and then you have additional complexity of sheer purchasing power moving now to young people, right? So experience, youth, how do you marry all of that? How do you listen to young people and their generation's ideas, at the same time be able to bring your experience to bear? So it's an incredibly hard task. I'm sure every CMO tries at it. In my observation, good CMOs succeed 60% of the time. And not so good CMOs just have people at one extreme or another. And it'll remain a challenge of growing complexity as the business becomes more complex.
I think very right. What seems quite clear is in this environment, I think nobody has all the answers. So 60% actually is a very good place to be in. I think the innate willingness to stick their neck out and take the risk is probably one big factor which is differentiating the successful ones from those who are not. And I think it's not one instance. If they do it often enough, and if their hit rate is higher than 50%, they are probably in a good place. Right. So now I think we have probably about 10 minutes. I'm looking at the board being shown to me. So I can do 2 things. One, I thought I can throw the house open for some questions. I think we have such an eminent panel, it will be injustice for me to ask all the questions. And then maybe circle back to them for one takeaway each. So over to you, please. If you have questions, please shoot. Somebody can get a mic to him. Yeah. So if you can also say your name, just introduce yourself.
Anand Siva. I'm probably in the same space as most CMOs are, because I moved from mainstream advertising into CRM, where I'm dealing with a lot of mathematicians, statisticians, CTOs, and CIOs. I've come across something very distinctly bothering businesses. Is when I've sold a CRM idea or a customer-centric process with the CMO's ability to understand what the data compulsions are or what the capabilities of data are so limited that it stops at certain point of time, and he or she says, listen, I can understand all that you told me till now. Now suddenly you're talking a language that nobody in this business understands. So maybe you need to go and talk to my CTO. And when I go to the CTO, the first question that he asks is, what difference does it make whether I tell you this customer responded in the morning or in the evening? Why can't you wait for a week to get the damn data, right? A lot of people from the insurance here, when we've gone back and told them, if you're sending a reminder to your customer in the morning, end of day, you must know if he's responded, because you don't want to call him the next day and ask him where his money is. Because you're building trust in insurance and you don't want to talk to the same customer who's already paid you. The CTO doesn't understand why. So the organization is not looking at it from a business. The CTO is looking at data as binary material. The CMO is looking at marketing as a business objective. Until such time these two converge into some kind of a platform of understanding, I think we'll continue to face this. I think the 60% will go down to 20%, right? The second question, observation is, I'm sorry to be anecdotal about it, but I found most organizations using the chief digital manager or chief digital officer as more of a cheap digital officer. Only his target is to go and buy leads at a lower cost. He doesn't seem to be somebody who has this objective of saying, is digital the main source of data, and therefore that becomes the primary, at the core of how I evolve the business. Till such time these digital officers evolve out of that, good negotiators, good buyers of digital media, will continue to face this lacuna of knowledge to drive marketing.
I mean, I can offer some comments. I think to your first one, I think it also lies with the people who are selling technologies like CRM. Most times we are selling the bells and whistles of the technology, and that's why the target becomes the CTO. I think what is thankfully happening is the buying power is moving more and more to CMO in a lot of decisions, and they are asking those hard questions. And the other thing which is quite interesting trend, which is somewhere the roles of CMO and CSO are combining to create something called a chief commercial officer, and I've seen some companies here as well. So they are taking a broader view, and while they need to become tech savvy, but maybe not an expert, and then they are bringing in somebody whose mandate is to decode this and say, how does it link to my business? That's one trend that I'm seeing. On the digital, I think like anything new fancy, best answer is put somebody in charge of that so it doesn't come to me. I think it's also a question of the CMOs who are on the early adopter curve or who are sort of the lagging majority. It's like we've always had that argument few years ago, who are focused on Marcom and who are focused on real marketing. I think the ones which are, and you heard a great example, who are taking the lead and saying, how can I make a difference? Because digital, as far as one can see, is not even marketing agenda, it's a company agenda. And we see startling statistic, about how CEOs and other function heads are completely unaware. I mean, in my business, we have large companies, and we were surprised to see when we started mapping them, some of them have virtually no presence. So there is no question of us providing a digital listening to them. But I think, there will be winners, there will be losers, and others will learn from examples of people who either succeed or fail. So that's at least my view. I think, there will be people who will take lead and others will follow, is my sense. But you're right. I mean, a lot of focus, and this is not only to digital, this is to tele and so many other things. I mean, that question came, outcome versus activity. You can show efficiency in a lot of activity, but is it towards some end worthwhile? I mean, that's a question to ask. Lord, you've seen a lot of this. You want to?
So I think the only the only reaction I have to what I think Anand said, I think I agree. I think it's the traditional build-up of the CMO's role has been skewed towards building the Marcom function, and therefore to your point, there's one digital person who's more like, how do I go and take this communication idea and amplify it? I think the role redefinition has begun to happen, which is the marketing responsibility kind of moving from what you earlier would call building brand regard to driving demand generation. right? And the moment you talk of driving demand generation, that becomes a more measurable objective, and which is where the whole impetus on digital comes right from the whole organization, because every marketing dollar you spend is directly measurable. My only concern, and I think the point that Arvind brought out was, very often in our desire to put together fancy dashboards and measure things, we end up measuring sometimes the wrong metrics, right? Which is very often, just to take a very loose example, measuring the likes on Facebook. It's not the engagement tool, it's not the amount of consumers engaging with you, it's the number of followers, number of people who liked your Facebook, which is completely off. So my point is, if mature organizations and mature marketers will evolve dashboards that are more relevant, that have a direct linkage to outcomes, and outcomes beneficial to the business. And once we're getting on that plane, I think the role of digital within the marketing mix will enhance dramatically. And smart marketers will get it sooner than we expect. But great question, Anand. Thanks.
So any more questions? There's one there.
This is Hita from Digital Market Asia. When we talk about digital marketing and its growing importance it's having within brands, over the next few years, are we going to see brands developing such digital departments in-house, or do we see a movement to outsourcing such to digital media agencies? If we talk about the Indian market specifically.
Well, we did that 3 years back, having an in-house department. I will actually bat for having an in-house department, because in-house department, you gradually get all kind of skills. Because you can have agencies today. I know some of my fellow marketers have got at least 15 digital agencies to work with. We also work with multiple agencies, because someone is specialized on video, someone is specialized on search, someone is specialized on social. So because no one has got the full skill set. It is no longer that creative agency, that world of creative agency which has that skill set. Currently in digital world, no one has got the similar kind of skill set. But more importantly, are they all engaged in terms of brand thinking? That's a more critical part. Unless you build your own internal team who actually understand your brand much better, understand your objective much better, if you just operate with the agencies and multiple agencies, because no single agency currently has the required set of skill. So it might so happen that, just imagine, in a boardroom you are trying to brief, there's a creative agency sitting, there is a digital agency sitting, there is a search agency sitting, there is a social agency sitting. So it's not really going to happen. So it is finally your guy has to really come up and what metrics he's requiring, how he's linking with the agencies, because that's more crucial part. And interestingly, in a marketing department, in the traditional marketing department, you can work with very few people, because finally you're giving a brief and agency finally working out, and you're actually going out with the campaign. But if you're trying to put a digital department, it's a people intensive kind of thing, where the skill set thing came in. How you'll actually build over a period of time where people think that you're doing a great quality work, so they will stay with you, they will come and join you. We have got people to join from Google, and our guys, that's like, we have lost 5 guys, 2 to Amazon, 2 to Google, and 1 to eBay. So that's a pride we take, in the sense we take people from that segment, and our people go and join in those kind of companies. So if you're staying cutting edge, and the skill problem will also get solved, but unless you have your own department on a long-term perspective, short-term you can really start with the agencies, but long-term you have to have your own department who knows about your brand, who knows about your objective, and can build it well.
So I think you cannot outsource what you don't understand. So I think marketers cannot outsource till they realize an opportunity and decode what they need. And to other thing, I think this space is very fragmented. There is no one agency who brings things together. I think it's early stage, agency will probably, the industry will consolidation will happen. People start providing that integration. But today I think the answer is the marketing department has to do it. Otherwise they probably won't get their hands around the whole pie.
Yeah, I'll just add one more dimension to the need of building up internal competencies rather than relying upon external or outsourced. I think the field is changing so rapidly, the environment is changing so rapidly, that you almost need a war room situation, like people getting into a huddle almost every day because something has changed. If you have an external agency, you'll spend far more time explaining to them what has changed and then hope for their response to happen in the real time. So increasingly, I would personally think that most successful marketeers, consumer-oriented organizations would increase their in-house capabilities rather than relying upon more outsourcing. That's a trend I see.
So I think the expertise versus operations. Right? Operations at some stage you may, because I think one reality also is in the digital space, it suddenly becomes 10x, 20x, or more.
Can I just add something?
Yeah.
I mean, I launched indiasarihouse.com 90 days ago. And just out of need to know everything, you can't outsource or delegate both what you don't understand. So I have been doing everything. Now, including handling chats, not 100% time, but 50%, 30%, 20%, depending upon what day of the week it is, chats. What I found astounding, and I want to underline, it's implied in what my colleagues on the panel have said, it is being hands-on digital for clients is an amazing source of insights. You can do research, right? And research is some investigator did Q&A and wrote something, somebody else tabulated it, somebody else interpreted it. By the time it comes to you, you have no clue. Out of trust, you say there must be some sense in it, and there is. But there is nothing like being able to listen and interact with your customers in their moments of joy, surge, agony, pleasure, anger, and to know what really drives your business. So, I mean, I would, while having been an agency man for over 30 years, I would still cast a vote for all marketing guys being pretty hands-on on all aspects of digital. They don't have to do it themselves, but they must know what's happening. And pretty much like old mantra was, you must make consumer home visits. That's what Procter did. And they did it, global CEO downwards, everybody had to do it. I would recommend that everybody in the marketing function has to spend certain number of hours interacting with digital media to really know what's going on. It's amazing source of insights about what your customers want and what your customers don't want and what your customers hate that you must fix in a tearing hurry.
No, absolutely. I think there is so much change happening. If you don't do it yourself, there is no way you can get somebody to do it yourself. I mean, I had not used many of these things. I try to do one every few weeks. So I started in Instagram. So initially I thought, what's the difference in sharing pictures? But once you start doing it, you realize the mood and the how it works is completely different. And then you go to wine and say it's completely different mood of the thing, and then you start understanding how do you even use it. So these are the things you cannot really outsource. At some stage I think operations you will, but insights, and as you said, this is instantaneous. Yeah, you have a comment with it.
Yeah, so I had to say something, right? So everybody is batting against so वो तो ना पेट पे लात मारोगे तो फिर हमको उठना पड़ेगा. So see, I mean, this debate has been going on for a long period of time. So in the creative field also in the early 70s, everybody set up the creative departments because they thought that they understand the product better. And within 10 years period, almost all of them closed down. Because the $1 billion that they thought they were spending on media, they will save $150 million, they actually lost sales. The challenge is that we are 625 people. In spite of that, we still don't have expertise of that level across all the different platforms of digital. If you take a Ben, I've spent 18 years, Ben has spent 13 years, all the guys, they dedicate their lives to one single medium. So for an in-house team, so we work with 7 e-commerce clients who have 20 people digital teams inside, but they still have to work with external partners. The digital thing is so complex for any partner, regardless what size you are. It's impossible to build capabilities across all the silos of digital, best in class, so that you can actually have an in-house team. So maybe you can take one function, but that also is going to be extremely challenging because at the end of the day, look at the technologies, right? If you just take, we have built technologies worth $50 million globally just to handle different aspects of search. Now those technologies are accessible only to clients who are working on this. Platforms like trading platforms, right? The Amnets of the world, programmatic buying, etc. These are all technologies that people who are working with 100 clients could afford to build. The SEO tools we've built. If you have one client, you won't even know what Google changes they've done because if you don't have a 100 client dashboard, how will you know what knobs Google has changed? So I think there's going to be a balance. So when we work with a Policy Bazaar or Naukri, these are people who are extremely good at what they do. But it's a specialized industry. In spite of this time, it's very difficult to master every single one of them. And any client, if he really feels they can build expertise of digital, which will best in class, good luck to them because it's been 18 years I've been trying to do that. I'm still struggling with 625 people.
No, Vivek, no one is actually giving you a tough time. So please understand what I was mentioning is something very different. What I was mentioning, you need to have a team who understand. See, what your team will never understand is, let's say, like, I'll just put an example. See, you want to buy keywords for me at the cheapest possible price. Okay, but you will not understand unless someone from my team also understand, tell you the business objective, irrespective of the price. I'm just giving an example, but like Yatish is saying, I'll just take the name. Irrespective of the price, I want anyone who search for Egan Deliger, my things should be there. That has to come from internally, because your team will always, what I meant is, your team has to understand every aspect of digital, so that when they work with the agency, they can get the best out of it. It is not just, you have completely outsourced, and you have, like, traditional marketeer in your thing, and you said search ke liye main isko outsource kar liya, social ke liye iske outsource kar liya. That will not really going to happen. But in a traditional world, that was very much the case. Like, he was outsourcing media to someone, he was outsourcing creative development to someone, and it was pretty much it. But in the digital world, that is not going to happen. I have no doubt that, you need agency, but what he meant is whether you will need a digital department or not. Yes, you'll definitely need a digital department to understand, to link all the aspect, and to link it with the brand, and link it with the communication.
Vivek, well done.
I think to your point, and I'm going back to previous presentation, one is that we must realize that we cannot be what we cannot be, right? I think that's pretty much clear. And in some of these competency areas, the talent that a standalone company attracts is normally lower than that of the agency standards, because the turn-on for people is to work across multiple categories, to work across a plethora of clients, and hence that level of talent, there's a different motivation in that area. So the second part really is, and I think that's the critical question I want to leave you guys with, is that this massive intersection between marketing and technology is opening out for new roles. And now, whether you call it the chief digital officer, but are any one of us actually thinking seriously of creating the competency of the marketing technologist, starting from even junior level people who understand both aspects of this business, right? And can work at that intersect, because most often there's a communication loss, which is very vast between what the CMO needs and what the CTO takes out of it, and then the entire process of procurement that comes into picture. So any thoughts on this marketing technologist business?
Yeah, see, I think couple of things are happening. I think ecosystem is also helping. I think Vivek is also here. Google does regular trainings in their offices. Vivek does regular training in their offices to explain how the search, it does the job simply. He said, you want to lead me or you want to give me money, but please understand where you're giving money and what you're getting out of it. So they say, and Adobe does that. A lot of good technology companies are actually doing training. And I urge all marketeers themselves to see, there are two levels things we can do. I think the skill development, also CMOs need skill development. Yep. I think what is important for all of us to really link ourselves with one smarter guy whom you think, who understand the medium better in your team, and understand from him better, because if you are the final authority eventually, you should know where you are actually sanctioning, where you are putting money in, and more importantly, where you can give the power out. So that's also important, because traditionally all these things comes to you for final signature, because final ad will not go out unless CMO signs. I was explaining on Sunday, my team was tweeting, one guy starts tweeting, and then he could not control, then there are two guys from agency side tweeting, so there are 5 guys tweeting at the same point of time. So no one is actually seeing what he's actually putting, but everything is going on a brand's name. Just imagine, that day within 2 hours time, 500 communication would have gone, but nobody has actually finally checked. So it is important to really train the people and develop them over the period of time. I'm sure at 5-year time we'll not be debating about this, because the new breed of marketer will come. They will have the cheap marketing technology skill set. But today it is important for all of us to learn, or helping all of our teammates to provide as much opportunity to learn, whether it's coming to conferences or going and learning, sitting down in the agencies and learning the basic deep inside how that actually operates. And a good thing that most of the technology companies are open to really provide that training. See, recently, a month back, I took my entire team to Apple office. See, Apple, most of the people think that so they also train what they do, how they create APIs, and what are the things they're looking at, what is the next set of things they're looking at. So all this information will help your team to really develop yourself and then go to the next level.
Okay, so now just to close off, I think very quick one sharp takeaway, which you wake up tomorrow morning after the bar. effect is over, and think about. So you have 5, so hopefully we can work with very 5 sharp ones.
See, actually, it's a very exciting space to be in. There's a lot of uncertainty about the whole thing. The only comment I would still like to make is what Arvind said, as far as people is concerned. My personal view with some experience has been that we need more diversity in hiring. We need more diverse kind of people within our organizations, irrespective of whatever their titles might be. So we need, whichever departments, not the classic silos of this particular profile, the more diversity we can get, age, gender, academic experience, probably we might be in a better position to handle this.
So diversity in hiring, holistic view of hiring.
Yeah, my take would be more in terms of moving the marketing focus from brand regard, which is the whole communication objective, to demand generation. And the moment you start looking at that, I think the digital is the normal, natural outcome of that. And that will also, in a sense, address the point that I think Yatish made was, the intersection between analytics and marketing. I don't necessarily see these two things as kind of counter, right? So an intuitive marketer, possibly deep down understands analytics, may not be so obviously so in terms of spreadsheets, but I believe that's the move from just brand regard to brand regard plus demand generation. I think that's the one takeaway.
So brand to demand. Yep. Raj?
Yeah, so my takeaway is speed. I think the digital influence on consumer spend will grow 5x in 2 years. That's what I read in some of the IBM research. So speed is critical. In 2 years, all of these challenges that we discussed, somebody has to act fast. And who is going to be the first?
Sanjay. Act fast.
I think Internet of IoT or Internet of Things, what we talk about, will change entire thing all over again, because now it is one-on-one. Now the devices will talk to each other. They'll be wearable. They'll be sending data. I think it is important to think, if the customer is thinking digital first, how the world is going to change for customer going forward, what is the kind of expectation from customer will change. Is my company processes and whatever I'm doing incrementally, whether it is offline or in digital or online, is it good enough to meet that expectation 2 years down the line? What I believe, I think in a previous presentation we were discussing, I think some of the companies, existing companies, may not even be there in 5 or 10 years down the line, who are very big players today. Because the way customer is interacting with the brand or with the product or the purchase will completely change. I think the Internet of Things, and we have to really look at, something I remember every day I think about digital first. How we'll do it digitally first, whatever I'm doing today, and how it is actually going to change that company's operation.
Awesome. Arvind, always have the last word.
So technology is power to transform businesses and power to transform lives. So my takeaway is, get rid of the silos. Digital is a driving force behind business. And sometimes that's driving brand, sometimes that's driving service, sometimes that's driving better service delivery, sometimes it's driving lower costs. And just forget the silos and say, how can we use technology to transform business, create tomorrow's business models? Thank you.
Awesome. So we've got very clear 5 sharp takeaways. Diversity of hiring, we've got brand to demand, we've got act fast, digital first, and break silos to transform. Thank you. Give them a big round of applause on that note.